How you going, guys? Welcome back to Walk It Off. I'm Nathan, and today I'd like to talk to you about this one right here, Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman. Let's check it out. Alrighty guys, Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman. Now, Scott is a psychologist who I believe studied under Jordan Peterson. Don't quote me on that. I'm just picking that up from a podcast I watched, and it was some time ago, so I can't remember whether it's true or not. Essentially, this book is a love letter of sorts to a psychologist named Abraham Maslow. If you've ever heard of something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this book is about it. Essentially, it's a hierarchy of the needs of a human being that need to be transcended in order to manifest positive change in the world. And it's commonly represented as a food pyramid that's not unlike, it's commonly represented by a pyramid, and it's not unlike the food pyramid in its structure, but as this book states, it's actually an incorrect metaphor and not a good analogy for presenting that information. Scott, and I believe Abraham Maslow as well, talk about it in terms of a boat is a good analogy metaphor for it, in that your baser needs, your physical needs like food and the need for shelter and things like that, form the hull of the boat, and your higher, more cognitive and personality driven needs, say for instance my need to be creative, is the sails that push a person forward or back in wherever they're going in their life. What is Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
According to Wikipedia, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is an idea in psychology proposed by Abraham Maslow in his 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation, in the journal Psychological Review.
So essentially what Maslow had pointed out is that there are intrinsic needs for a human being to flourish, and if those needs aren't met, so if say for instance, if I am being as creative as I can possibly be, that doesn't matter unless I'm being fed. I can't be creative unless I am nutritionally satisfied, so to speak. And they are a very adaptable set of rules and things, but the pyramid is not the best way of representing it. That was actually made later at a business school and was not made by Abraham Maslow at all. It was someone else entirely, I believe, in an MBA course. So in this book, Kaufman ponders whether chasing happiness is actually the best way to get to better places in your life, and whether you should actually be chasing just being fulfilled as a human being, and then happiness is a side effect of that. And I really have to agree with that. If you're keeping your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, you really don't have time to worry about things that you don't have the time to let things get to you, really. I've definitely found that with my creative pursuits and creating all of this. So Kaufman states that unpredictability can have severe consequences for a person's mental health, where they kind of go into what he calls psychological or emotional entropy, where you the idea of entropy in physics is no system that is getting energy from elsewhere. So if you're not getting energy from an external point, your internal energy can only become less and less usable and more diffuse and spread out. And that's definitely the case when it comes to your mental health and unpredictability. So I noticed very early on in So most depression is you have gone through a catastrophic event in your life, and it's lasted for longer than it predicted your body would predict, something like that. Then your evolutionary traits have built you to be able to handle, and after a while of being in that experience, after that event, your body will just go into, okay, shit, this is the new normal. And that's what depression really is this kind of, okay, I have to stay in this anxiety state, otherwise it's too unpredictable and I must go into self-protection safe mode. So one of the other things that Scott explores quite a lot in this is the concepts, or not so much the concepts, is just the interesting fact that a lot of people who have a really, what most people would call a talent, and or like a really high level skill that they're producing good quality stuff with into the world, a lot of those people went through severe tragedies in their early years, and how detrimental events can bring a focus to a person's life that lets them kind of shed all the superfluous crap that they have going on around them and really truly focus on the thing that they want to bring into the world. And it's a very interesting exploration in this, and he dives quite deep, being a clinical psychologist and a lab psychologist himself. So he conducted lots of studies to do with early childhood, and it's things to do with like a safe but stressful environment can actually help produce a level of focus, because like I said, they have to kind of block out all of the superfluous stuff that's going on in their lives in order to be able to practice this skill that they want. And he dives quite deep into it, and it is a couple of very interesting chapters in this book. So he does spend some time talking about the effect that social media has been having on our psyches, and how we've kind of, there's a lot of mental health problems in the world at the moment, and they seem to be manifesting from this constant comparative mechanism that social media has given us, that we did not evolve to handle being connected with 8 billion other people. We're just not. Like, at most, I think most humans would have met about maybe 1,000 people over their lifetime, and the 21st century has just gone and we now have to deal with all of the humans, and that kind of just warps our wiring. It fundamentally changes our wiring slightly, in that, you know, you have contact with Elon Musk on Twitter if you want. You can talk to him, but you don't want to live in this constant comparison of him, as he's obviously in a much better place than most people, but he's worked his guts out to get there. And you probably shouldn't be comparing yourself to him, because he's in a very different place in his life compared to you. And to do that would just be catastrophic to your psyche, because you're going to be thinking, oh man, I'm so shit. But, you know, that's Elon, dude. So one of the really interesting things that Scott talks about quite significantly in this book is that, do narcissistic and domineering personality types come from a severe lack of secure foundational connections when a person was younger? And the more I thought about that, the more it makes sense that if you're having very insecure emotional attachment as a child, does that then grow on into the need to try and almost, not strangle's not the right word, but to just really grip on with all of your life to try and maintain that you have these connections from the fear of loss. And I thought that was a really interesting chapter in this. Definitely worth exploring. Alrighty guys, so yeah, I think this was might be the second best mental health book you'll read this year, after Love People Use Things. I really thoroughly enjoyed this one, and it's a bit deeper of a dive into psychology. I wouldn't recommend this one as your first foray into the medium, as it might be a little bit intimidating, but you should definitely check this one out anyway. I very highly recommend it. It made me think a little bit differently on a variety of subjects to do with mental health, the development of narcissistic behavior being one of them, in that kind of, you know, no one, I don't know who said it, but it kind of is encapsulated in here that your mental health might not be your fault. In fact, it's probably not your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it and to take care of it. The section on the different types of narcissism is really, really interesting. I really appreciated the section on what's called vulnerable narcissism. That bit will definitely make you think a little differently on some of the relationships in your life, and you know, just what's caused certain people to be the way that they are. And yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily their fault, but it is your responsibility to take care of your shit and not pass it down to the next generation, all right? And a lot of people don't think about that, and they're just kind of meandering through their lives without ever really contemplating this type of stuff, and it's really sad because they're going to end up passing it down to the next generation. You should check this one out. Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman. I very highly recommend it. I'm Nathan. This has been Walk It Off. Remember, just because you're stuck at home doesn't mean that there's not any possibilities. You can get some really good reading done in this time. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and go outside. Get better and be awesome. See you next time, guys.